This is TWiT.
Before we dig into the shows, Huyen had some great pictures from AAA Google I/O.
Oh, it's not just me too. I mean, Michelle contributed some.
And Michelle, right?
So
the link, Victor, in the doc above the news section, there's a little photo album there, and I mean, rarely, if ever, actually, never before last Tuesday and Wednesday were all of us in the same place at the same time. So, had to capture it. And Huyen took a number of photos. We got a bunch of really awesome, there's Victor in there, Michelle. We got a bunch of awesome group pictures and everything. Saw Flo.
For our audio listeners, these are all photos of us at Google I/O right now.
This is the first time I got to sneak. I've tried to sneak into the press boxes at Shoreline Amphitheater for years, just because they're nice to sit in. They're a little more roomy, but they're pretty good with the bouncers. But this year I managed to sneak into the press box with these lovely folks and sit from there.
Hi, Flo.
And Flo, I missed Flo.
I know. How did that happen?
I don't know. I missed Flo, and I'm so sad. And she was very proud of her cloud zit patch, which is a conversation starter. But it was just really, really great to see everybody in person and to be at Shoreline with everybody and kind of experience this together.
Yeah. So actually, so let's just real quick spend like a minute talking about that aspect, because Mike, when both of you were at I/O last year, Mike, you were not at I/O this year, but when you were, changes. I mean, it is different. They let in more people. Arguably, we as a team had more going on, but was it an upgrade in your mind, Huyen? What do you think?
So as
the
a
event is concerned, I suppose.
As a developer, no, there was less developers, and I say not an upgrade, and I don't mean that to be insulting. Yeah. It's just that it's kind of the same, where there's basically just the consumer keynote and developer keynote, and that was it. And then the rest of the content is online. So, if you like that, then that was more the same this year. There was not, at least as far as I could see, any additional fun and festivals for us. I know it was different for press. But kind of the same. So you can take that as you will.
So it's almost more of a press event then, really.
It is.
And that's kind of a shame when it's a developer conference. Or maybe what it is Google I/O, the event, is the press event. Google I/O, the developer conference, is the 200 videos that are released online, which, we had a conversation, Ron, I believe you were there with this conversation. We were talking with a Googler who helps coordinate all this stuff. And he basically said, look, prior to the pandemic, we had no reason to share all of our videos because it was all about the event, bringing people here. And if you were here, you got something special. Now, since the pandemic, they've seen more engagement on the actual developer content online than they feel like they ever saw with the event itself. And so I kind of got the impression that he was saying, he didn't say it outright, but I really got the impression that this is kind of the way it's going to be. It's going to be a single day probably, and all this stuff online.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of gives them the best of both worlds, because they get the gathering event for people who want to go, but then people who either they can't afford to, or employers don't want to send them, or whatever it is, can watch at home and get it all. I mean, to me, it seems like they found their footing and they found what possibly works best for the community. I don't know, Mike. What do you think? What do you think, Huyen? What do you think?
Go ahead, Mike.
So I do have a lot of thoughts about this, of course.
Yeah.
First thing, I do think this is the way of the future for big conferences. WWDC this year is similar. It's the same sort of thing where they're just having one day. It's mostly online. I do think this is the way. This is the first Google I/O I have not been to live. And it was actually the first one since last year attending, and it was kind of not that, wonderful an event that I kind of am just okay with it. And I'm okay with it in particular. Well, I'm okay with it because a lot of the content's online. The other thing I wanted to mention is Google is trying for the first time this year a follow-on event called I/O Connect. And they do these things a lot, but this is kind of like the festival portion, perhaps, of Google I/O. It's in a few weeks in Miami, which is kind of not a great decision, but it's going to be like the booths and stuff that you would have set up at Google I/O, where you can ask DevRel questions, and the Code Labs and some things like that. So they're having that, but it's just at a different event.
Yeah, definitely a different event all around. Interesting. Okay. Well, I missed seeing you at Google I/O, Mike. So
likewise.
Yeah. I will say, and I won't name names, but I did talk to some folks who work at Google who lament the lack of kind of in-person like interaction with developers, and that's always been a strong point of the Android communities that we have.
It's part of the conversation,
the
right?
Googlers. Yeah, and it goes both ways, right? So we get access to the Google engineers to ask them questions about like either specific or broad things, but the people who work on the team also love hearing from us as well. And not to say that can't happen now, like for sure at the Connect events it will, but Mike, is the Connect event GDEs only, or is it like general? I'm sorry.
It's open to everybody.
So I think that's where they make it up, but especially with, I think Google like being a little more like about local events, it's like you're not going to see all your favorite Googlers, or like all of your favorite Googlers rather are not going to have as much interaction with you. So I think that is, we'll see how it goes with the Connect, and maybe like how both us as developers, third-party developers, and the Google folks feel about it. But it was kind of a big deal to kind of have this big event where all the Googlers, and as many devs as could make it, could all have access to each other and create that collaboration. So that's going to be the part that they need to work hard to make up for, I think. And I mean, maybe Connect will be that, but we'll see. Yeah. Keep my hopes up.
It won't be that. And I think, honestly, we won't have Google I/O like we had in the past, unfortunately.
Yeah, because, I mean, how many developers are going to go out to, fly out to the Bay Area and stay at a hotel and everything for a single day that is taken up 2/3 by keynotes? Like, you know what I mean? It's just fundamentally, it's a very different event than it was before.
And the thing is, while we're on the top, like, the keynote was very long. I mean, it was a more than 2 hour keynote, right? And Jason, I feel like over the years we've seen everything from the tight hour and a half to like a crazy multi-hour skydiving, kind of extravaganza, right?
Yeah.
But like, and I do think like it'd be remiss without, and we're going to get into it in the details as we start breaking stuff down, but like the going joke that everyone made after the keynote for the rest of the day, myself included, was AI much? Right? Because after 2 hours of having those two letters hammered into your brain, it did get taxing and exhausting at some point, where just like it was very repetitive. And I'll give my friend credit, who was texting me during the event, and he was describing what they were doing as basically like, he said it feels a lot like a restaurant. They keep serving me vegetable dishes instead of what I ordered.
So then is Google not reading the room? Because I feel like everybody's talking about AI, but Google, I mean, and so just to kind of give you an idea of where this show is headed, the entire first block here is filled with AI news. I figured we'll just get the AI done, and then the rest of the episode we have non-AI stuff.
and before we get into the AI stuff, I mean, I think that the official kind of stuff, the AI, the theme of the entire event was AI. Mm-hmm. And my takeaway from it was Google's gotten beat up over the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, with ChatGPT and OpenAI kind of leading the pack of like what AI can do, and Midjourney and all these other, all these other generative AI kind of startups that are in the place. And Google needed to reassert themselves and say, no, actually, we're a leader in the space. They, Sundar opened it up by saying, over 7 years of research into AI and development and stuff like that. Like, they kept on driving home the fact that they've been working on this. And it was almost, like Shakespearean, and like the lady doth protest too much. Right? But it was definitely, they said it a lot.
They said it a lot. Well, we were joking while we were there. If we could take a transcript of the keynote and run it through Bard and tell Bard, tell me how many times the word, the acronym AI was spoken during this keynote, we figured it would probably be at least 1,000, if not more. It's midweek, and you really want to know even more about the world of technology.
So you should check out Tech News Weekly, the show where we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news.
It's the biggest news. We talk with the people writing the stories that you're probably reading. We also talk between ourselves about the stories that are getting us even more excited about tech news this week.
So if you're excited, well, then join us. Head to twit.tv/TNW to subscribe.